Commander Deho stood on the bridge of his warship and watched another fleet die. The screen showed dozens of ships breaking apart under the relentless attacks of the Vex swarm. Their black vessels moved like insects, covering everything they touched. He had seen this happen too many times before. "Sir, the defensive line is collapsing," his second officer reported. The young Zenthari's voice shook with fear. Deho said nothing. What could he say? They had been fighting the Vex for 70 years. His grandfather had fought them. His father had died fighting them. Now it was his turn, and they were still losing. The Galactic Coalition controlled 7 species, hundreds of worlds, and thousands of ships. But the Vex just kept coming. "Pull back all remaining forces," Deho ordered. "We cannot win here today." It hurt to say those words, but staying meant dying for nothing. The Coalition had learned that lesson the hard way. You retreated, regrouped, and tried to hold the next line. Then the next one. Then the next one after that. As his fleet limped away from another defeat, Deho looked at the star maps. Red zones showed Vex territory. It grew larger every month. Blue zones showed Coalition space. It grew smaller. Simple math said they would lose this war within 20 years. Maybe less. Back at the command station, the Coalition leaders argued as always. Admiral Vec wanted to abandon the outer colonies. General Thross insisted they could hold if they had more ships. Ambassador Quinn spoke about diplomatic solutions. Deho had heard it all before. Nothing changed. Nothing helped. "We need a miracle," Vec said finally, and everyone in the room knew he was right. That night Deho could not sleep. He reviewed old star charts looking for anything they had missed. Supply routes. Hidden bases. Anything. His eyes stopped on an old system marked in faded text. Sol. His fingers pulled up the file. Sol system. Star classification, G-type main sequence. Third planet, potentially habitable but extremely hostile environment. High gravity. Violent weather patterns. Dangerous native life forms. Recommended for mining operations only. No intelligent life detected. The file was 300 years old. The Coalition had dismissed Earth as a death world and never looked back. Nobody wanted to colonize a planet where the gravity could crush you and the weather could kill you. But something made Deho look closer. The file mentioned strange energy signatures detected 50 years ago, but they had been classified as natural phenomena. Nobody had followed up. Why would they? Death worlds did not produce intelligent life. "Plot a course to the Sol system," Deho told his navigator the next morning. "Sir?" The navigator looked confused. "There's nothing there." "Then we will waste a few days confirming that," Deho said. "Better than sitting here watching more fleets die." The journey took 6 days. As they approached the Sol system, Deho's crew detected something impossible. Ships. Dozens of ships using FTL drives. But the designs were completely unknown. "Unknown vessels, this is Commander Deho of the Galactic Coalition," he transmitted. "Please identify yourselves." The response came in perfect Coalition standard language, though the accent was strange. "Coalition vessel? This is Captain Hyunwoo of the Earth Defense Fleet. We have been waiting a long time to meet you." Earth. Deho felt his breath catch. Intelligent life had evolved on a death world. It should have been impossible. "Permission to board your vessel, Captain," Deho requested. "We have much to discuss." The human ship that approached was built differently from Coalition vessels. Heavier armor, redundant systems. It looked like something designed to take damage and keep fighting. When Deho's shuttle docked, he met the humans for the first time. Captain Hyunwoo was shorter than Deho but built solid with muscle. His skin was darker than Deho expected, and his eyes held the look of someone who had seen combat. Behind him stood a woman in a different uniform. "I am Dr. Nari," she said. "I speak for Earth's scientific community. We have been monitoring Coalition transmissions for 20 years. We know about the Vex. We want to help." Deho tried not to show his surprise. These creatures had been watching them for 2 decades and said nothing. "Why reveal yourselves now?" Deho asked. "Because you are losing," Hyunwoo said simply. "We have seen the battle reports. Another 10 years and the Vex will overrun the Coalition core worlds. We cannot allow that to happen." They sat in a meeting room and Dr. Nari explained. Humans had achieved FTL travel 30 years ago. They had spent that time exploring, learning, and building their fleet. They had watched the Coalition's war with growing concern. "We can fight," Hyunwoo said. "Earth has taught us well." Daeho wanted to believe them, but he had seen too many defeats. Captain, I mean no disrespect, but the Coalition represents 7 advanced species. We have been fighting the Vex with everything we have. What can one more species do? A woman in combat armor stepped forward. Her name tag read Silgi. She was an engineer. Commander, may I show you something? She asked. Silgi pulled up images of Earth on the display. Daeho stared. Massive storms that could swallow his entire homeworld. Oceans deep enough to crush Coalition submarines. Mountains that pierced the atmosphere. Predators with claws and teeth. Temperature swings that went from freezing to burning. This is where we come from, Silgi said quietly. We evolved to survive this. The Vex are dangerous, but Earth made us more dangerous. Dr. Nari added more data. Human bone density was twice that of any Coalition species. Their muscle tissue regenerated faster. They could function with severe injuries that would kill others. They could go without sleep for days. Their immune systems fought off infections that would be fatal to anyone else. You are from a death world, Daeho said slowly. Understanding began to dawn. Yes, Hyunwoo confirmed. And now we are ready to fight. Give us a chance, Commander. Deploy 1 human battalion alongside your forces. Let us prove what we can do. Daeho looked at the humans. They stood straight and confident. Not arrogant, but certain, like soldiers who had already won battles he could not imagine. 1 battalion, Daeho agreed. But if you fail, I cannot spare resources to rescue you. Hyunwoo smiled. Commander, we are humans. We do not need rescue. We are the rescue. 3 days later, Daeho reported to Coalition High Command. He told them about Earth and the humans who wanted to help. Most of the commanders dismissed it. 1 more species would not change anything, but Daeho had seen something in those human eyes. Something that had been missing from Coalition forces for a long time. Hope. Let them fight, Daeho urged. What do we have to lose? The Coalition approved a trial deployment. 2,000 human soldiers would join the defense of Outpost Meridian. The Vex were expected to attack within the month. Daeho did not know if the humans would make a difference. But for the first time in years, he felt something other than despair. Maybe these Deathworlders would surprise everyone. Maybe legends were about to become real. Outpost Meridian sat on the edge of Coalition space like a last warning sign. Beyond it lay contested territory where the Vex pushed forward every day. Commander Daeho watched the human ships arrive and felt doubt creep into his mind. 12 small vessels carrying 2,000 soldiers. It looked like nothing compared to the Vex forces gathering in the dark. Sergeant Minho stepped off the transport and immediately started barking orders at his troops. He was a thick man with scars on his face and hands that looked like they had broken things before. His soldiers moved with quick efficiency, unloading equipment that made Coalition officers stop and stare. Are those chemical propellant weapons? Commander Daeho's weapons officer asked. Backups, Minho explained in his rough voice. Energy rifles are good until they fail. Bullets always work. The Coalition soldiers whispered among themselves. These humans carried primitive weapons alongside modern ones. They wore lighter armor than standard. Some of their equipment looked like it had been built in a workshop instead of a factory. Everything about them seemed wrong. Ambassador Jisoo arrived to smooth things over. She was a diplomat from Earth who had been training for this moment. She understood that the Coalition species looked at humans and saw something that did not fit their understanding of modern warfare. Our methods are different, Jisoo explained to the Coalition commanders. But they work. Give Sergeant Minho's people a chance to show you. Daeho assigned the human battalion to the southern defensive line. It was the weakest position, where he expected the Vex to hit hardest. If the humans failed there, his other forces could cover the retreat. If they succeeded, well, that would be something worth seeing. The Vex attacked 3 days later. They came in waves like they always did. Black ships dropping thousands of warriors onto the surface. The Vex looked like nightmares, all sharp edges and too many limbs. They did not feel fear. They did not stop. They just kept coming until everything was dead. Coalition forces on the northern and eastern lines followed standard procedure. Fire at range. Fall back to secondary positions. Evacuate if the line broke. It was a dance they had practiced 1,000 times. The southern line did not fall back. Minho's soldiers held their ground as the Vex charged. Coalition observers watched in shock as the humans fired, moved, fired again. They used the terrain like Daeho had never seen before. Hidden traps, ambush points, crossfire zones. The Vex warriors ran into kill boxes and died by the hundreds. When the Vex got close, the humans did something no coalition soldier would do. They fought hand to hand. Deho saw it happen through the drone feeds. A human soldier ran out of ammunition, pulled a knife, and stabbed a Vex warrior 3 times before it fell. Another human used her rifle like a club, smashing Vex mandibles. They were not supposed to survive close combat with the Vex. Nobody survived that, but humans did. South Line holding, the tactical officer reported. His voice carried disbelief. The battle lasted 18 hours. By the end, the northern line had fallen back twice. The eastern line had called for reinforcements. The southern line, the human line, stood exactly where it had started. Deho walked the battlefield after the Vex retreated. Dead Vex warriors covered the ground. Human casualties were surprisingly light. He found Minho helping dig graves for the soldiers they had lost. 11 dead, 30 wounded. You held, Deho said. It was not a question. Yes, sir, Minho replied. That is what we do. How? The Vex should have overrun your position. Minho shrugged his heavy shoulders. They are tough, but so are we. Maybe tougher. Earth made us that way. A human medic named Yunji was treating wounded coalition soldiers in the medical bay. She had been working for 36 hours without rest. Deho watched her move from patient to patient, her hands quick and certain. Coalition medical officers stood back, amazed at her stamina. Does she not need sleep? One asked. Eventually, another human soldier answered. But we can push longer than most species. Adrenaline, cortisol, and stubbornness. Good combination for long battles. Sulgi, the engineer from the first meeting, was in the maintenance bay doing impossible things to coalition equipment. She had modified a shield generator to run at twice its normal capacity. The original manufacturer said such modifications would cause catastrophic failure. Will it explode? A coalition engineer asked nervously. Probably not, Sulgi said cheerfully. And if it does, we can fix it fast. Human engineering philosophy: make it work, make it better, worry about the manual later. Over the next month, 3 more Vex attacks hit Outpost Meridian. Each time, the southern line held. Each time, the humans did things coalition soldiers thought impossible. They fought in toxic atmospheres that should have killed them. They kept going after taking damage that should have stopped them. They worked together with a coordination that seemed almost telepathic. Battle changed everything for Deho. A Vex strike team broke through the eastern defenses and trapped a squad of coalition soldiers in a burning building. The structure was collapsing, filled with smoke and radiation. Every scan said nobody could survive in there. A human soldier named Junho went in anyway. He came out carrying 2 coalition soldiers, one over each shoulder. His armor was half melted. His face was burned. He collapsed after taking 3 steps, but the coalition soldiers were alive. The video spread through every coalition ship in the sector. Soldiers watched it over and over. This human had charged into certain death to save people he barely knew. No hesitation. No fear. They call us Deathworlders, Private Sora told a coalition intelligence officer she had befriended. Maybe that is true. But Earth taught us that death is just another enemy to fight. Sometimes you win. Sometimes you do not. But you always fight. Commander Deho sent his report to Coalition High Command. He chose his words carefully. The humans were not miracle workers. They were soldiers who had learned warfare on a planet that tried to kill them every day. They brought tactics the Coalition had never considered because Coalition species had never needed such brutal methods. They do not retreat unless ordered, Deho wrote. They do not surrender. They do not break. Whatever Earth did to these people, it made them into the soldiers we desperately need. The response came back fast. Coalition High Command wanted more human forces deployed immediately. The trial period was over. Earth had proven itself. Deho stood with Captain Hyunwoo and watched human reinforcements arrive. 50 ships this time, 10,000 soldiers. The humans were going to war, and the Vex were about to learn what happened when you fought someone who came from a planet that never stopped trying to kill them. Your people impressed everyone, Deho told Hyunwoo. We just did what we know, Hyunwoo replied. Earth is harder than the Vex. When you survive Earth, everything else is easier. Sergeant Minho walked past, shouting at his troops to secure their gear. Ambassador Jisoo was meeting with coalition diplomats, working out the details of joint operations. Yunji was still in the medical bay, finally getting some rest after days of non-stop work. Seolgi was probably taking apart something expensive to make it work better. For the first time since this war started, Deho felt something dangerous and powerful. He felt hope. The legends were real now. The humans had entered the battle and nothing would ever be the same. Operation Shattered Claw began at dawn on 12 worlds simultaneously. The combined fleet dropped out of FTL space in Vex territory like a hammer falling. No coalition force had penetrated this deep into enemy space before. They were about to learn why. General Bora commanded the ground forces from her mobile headquarters. She was a hard woman who had survived 3 planetary invasions back on Earth. She looked at the Vex defensive positions and saw problems that had solutions. If you were willing to pay the price. All units, advance on marked targets, Bora ordered. No stopping. No hesitating. We hit them before they can organize. The Vex fought back with everything they had. Their weapons were designed to kill through shields and armor. Their warriors were bred for combat and nothing else. They had been winning this war for 70 years and did not plan to stop now, but they had never fought humans before. Engineer Heron's ship modifications proved their worth in the first hours of battle. Coalition vessels took hits that should have destroyed them and kept fighting. She had reinforced hulls with redundant systems, added armor in critical areas, and redesigned power distribution to prevent catastrophic failures. "How are you doing this?" a coalition engineer asked as he watched a human ship lose half its hull and continue firing. "We design for worst-case scenarios," Heron explained while working. "Earth taught us that things will go wrong, so we build ships that work even when they are broken." In space, Admiral Yuna's fleet engaged the Vex dreadnoughts. The battle was brutal. Ships exploded on both sides. But Yuna had learned something from 70 years of coalition defeats. The Vex always concentrated their fire on damaged ships, finishing them off before moving to the next target. It was efficient but predictable. "All damaged vessels fall back but keep firing," Yuna ordered. "Fresh ships move forward. We keep rotating. Make them chase us." The Vex fleet found itself fighting an enemy that would not stand still and die. Human and coalition ships worked together, covering each other's retreat, returning to battle after quick repairs. The Vex had never faced tactics like this. They were adapted to fighting enemies who broke when pushed hard enough. Humans did not break. Lieutenant Commander Sunho led the Special Forces mission that would determine the entire operation's success. His team of 20 humans and 30 coalition volunteers had one job: infiltrate a Vex breeding facility and destroy it. The facility produced thousands of warriors every day. Eliminating it would hurt the Vex badly. They dropped from orbit in stealth pods, landed in hostile territory, and moved toward the target. Sunho had picked his team carefully. Every member was someone who could think fast, move fast, and survive when everything went wrong. Everything went wrong on the second day. The Vex detected them 5 kilometers from the breeding facility. Warriors poured out of hidden bunkers. The Special Forces team found themselves surrounded, outnumbered 10 to 1 with no chance of extraction. "Set charges on everything explosive," Sunho ordered calmly. "We are not leaving until this place burns." A coalition soldier looked at him with fear. "We cannot fight through that many Vex." "No," Sunho agreed. "But we can make them pay for every step. Fix bayonets." "We are going forward," the team charged. It was insane. It was suicide. It was exactly what the Vex did not expect. The warriors hesitated for one crucial second, confused by prey that attacked instead of fleeing. That second was enough. Sunho's team hit the Vex line like a bomb. They fought with guns until the ammunition ran out, then with knives and bare hands. The coalition soldiers watched humans do impossible things, and something changed in them. Fear turned to fury. They stopped thinking about survival and started thinking about victory. The team reached the breeding facility. Half of them were wounded. 3 humans and 2 coalition soldiers were dead, but they were inside. "Set the charges," Sunho ordered. 5-minute timer. "Then we run." They planted explosives throughout the facility. As they worked, Sunho accessed the Vex communication network. What he found there changed everything. The Vex were terrified of humans. Their communications called humans the unkillable prey that became predator. The Vex had evolved as apex predators on their own world. They had never encountered prey that fought back successfully. Humans confused them at a fundamental level. How could something that should be easy to kill be so hard to kill? Sunho downloaded everything and transmitted it to the fleet. Then the team ran as the facility exploded behind them. They fought their way to the extraction point, losing 2 more people along the way. A rescue shuttle piloted by Taeyang dropped through heavy fire to pick them up. On the ground, General Bora's forces faced a problem. The Vex had strong defensive positions on high ground. Standard coalition tactics said to bombard from orbit, then advance slowly. That would take days and give the Vex time to bring in reinforcements. Bora did not have days. "Sergeant Minho," she called on the command channel. "I need your battalion to take that hill." Minho looked at the hill through his scope. Heavy fortifications. Clear lines of fire. Lots of dead ground his people would have to cross. It was a nightmare. "Yes, ma'am," Minho replied. "We will take it." His soldiers prepared for the assault. They checked weapons, redistributed ammunition, and said quiet prayers to whatever they believed in. Then they moved. The Vex opened fire. Humans fell, but the others kept going. They used smoke, cover, and speed. They took casualties but did not stop. Sergeant Minho led from the front, his rifle hammering away at enemy positions. Halfway up the hill, they ran out of ammunition for the energy weapons. The advance should have stopped there. Instead, Minho drew his steel knife and kept going. His soldiers followed. They hit the Vex defensive line with bayonets and blades, fighting with the kind of violence that came from Earth's prehistoric past. Coalition troops watching from other positions saw humans fighting like their ancient ancestors, and something primal stirred in them. They were not human. They could not match human endurance or strength. But they could be brave. They could refuse to quit. Coalition soldiers advanced on their own objectives with new fury. The Vex line started to crack. Captain Hyunwoo's flagship took critical damage during a battle with 3 Vex dreadnoughts. His ship was dying, losing atmosphere and power. The logical choice was to evacuate. All crew to escape pods, Hyunwoo ordered. Then he stayed at his post. "Captain, you need to leave," his executive officer urged. "Not yet," Hyunwoo said. "We can still hurt them." He aimed his dying ship at the closest Vex dreadnought and pushed the engines to maximum. The coalition fleet watched in shock as Hyunwoo's ship, barely holding together, rammed the Vex vessel at full speed. Both ships exploded in a ball of fire. The Vex command node for the entire sector died in that explosion. Hyunwoo died making sure his crew survived. His sacrifice broke the Vex fleet's coordination, letting the coalition forces win the battle. Dr. Nari, monitoring everything from a command ship, made a decision. She opened a broadcast to all coalition channels. "This is Dr. Nari of Earth," she said. "I want to be clear about something. We did not come to your galaxy to save you. We came to fight beside you, human and coalition. Together. That is how we win." The message spread. In 100 battles across a dozen worlds, coalition soldiers heard it and understood. Humans were not superior warriors come to rescue the weak. They were allies sharing what they had learned from surviving a brutal world. Commander Daeho, now Fleet Admiral commanding the combined forces, watched the battle reports come in. Operation Shattered Claw was succeeding beyond expectations. The Vex manufacturing centers were damaged or destroyed. Their supply lines were cut. Their forces were in retreat. "We did it," Admiral Yuna said, exhaustion clear in her voice. "We actually did it." "No," Daeho corrected gently. "We are doing it. This war is not over, but for the first time, I believe we will win." Sergeant Minho stood on the hill his battalion had taken. 30 of his soldiers were dead, twice that many wounded. But the hill was theirs, and the Vex were falling back. A young coalition soldier climbed up to stand beside him. The alien had fought in the assault following Minho's charge. "Why do you do this?" the soldier asked. "Why fight so hard for people you just met?" Minho looked at the battlefield, at the mixed human and coalition forces preparing for the next engagement. "Because someone has to," Minho said simply. "And we can." That is enough. The tide had turned. The legends had proven real, and the Vex were learning what humanity had always known. The hardest battles create the strongest warriors. The word spread like fire through coalition space. Humans, Deathworlders, warriors who did not know how to quit. Within 6 months of Outpost Meridian, human forces were deployed to 7 different combat zones. Each battle added new stories to their growing legend. Admiral Yuna commanded the human fleet with cold precision. She was older than most combat officers, with gray showing in her black hair. She had fought in Earth's last major war before humanity reached the stars. Now she brought those lessons to the coalition, teaching commanders strategies they had never considered. You fight like you expect to lose, Yuna told a coalition admiral during a planning session. You always plan the retreat before you plan the attack. That mindset guarantees defeat. We plan for realistic outcomes, the admiral protested. Then plan to win, Yuna said simply. Make the Vex plan their retreat instead. She reorganized coalition tactics around combined arms operations. Human ground forces working with coalition air support. Human engineers reinforcing coalition defensive positions. Human medical teams keeping coalition soldiers alive through injuries that used to mean death. The changes were small at first, but they added up. In the Kilos sector, a young pilot named Taeyang became famous for maneuvers that should have killed him. He flew his fighter through a gas giant's atmosphere to escape Vex pursuers, using the gravity and wind shear to slingshot himself behind enemy lines. Coalition pilots watched the recording and could not believe what they saw. How did you survive those G-forces? A coalition pilot asked Taeyang after the battle. Training, Taeyang replied, and bones that do not break easy. Earth has 2 times the gravity of most coalition worlds. Flying in normal space feels light to us. The coalition pilots tried to copy Taeyang's techniques. Most of them blacked out from the acceleration. Their bodies could not handle the stress. It was another reminder that humans were built different, shaped by a world that demanded toughness just to survive childhood. A video began circulating through coalition networks. It showed a human soldier named Junho, the same one who had rescued coalition troops at Outpost Meridian. This time he was carrying a wounded soldier through a zone saturated with radiation. The levels were high enough to kill a coalition soldier in minutes. Junho made the journey 3 times, saving 3 lives. He spent 2 weeks in medical afterward, but he survived. His body healed from radiation damage that should have been permanent. Coalition citizens watched these videos and struggled to understand. How could one species be so tough? The answer always came back to Earth, the death world that made death worlders. Ambassador Jisoo found herself constantly managing perceptions. Some coalition species began to fear humans. They saw the violence, the resilience, the refusal to stay down. They wondered if humans would turn that strength against their allies someday. We are not monsters, Jisoo explained in a broadcast to coalition worlds. We are people who had to be strong to survive our home. That strength is yours now. We fight beside you, not above you. But the evidence kept mounting. Human capabilities seemed to have no limit. Researcher Jiwon opened Earth's medical databases to coalition scientists. They read the files in horror and fascination. Human immune systems that could fight off hundreds of diseases. Bones that healed themselves. Blood that clotted to stop bleeding in minutes. Pain tolerance that let humans function with injuries that would leave other species unconscious. Your species has redundant organs, a coalition doctor said to Jiwon. You can lose a kidney, part of your liver, even a lung, and survive. How? Evolution, Jiwon answered. Earth was very good at killing us, so we evolved to be very hard to kill. The Vex advance slowed for the first time in 70 years. Not stopped, but slowed. Human forces were not winning every battle, but they were not losing them either. They held positions. They counterattacked. They made the Vex pay for every meter of ground. Private Sora sat with her coalition friend in a quiet moment between battles. The young Zenthari soldier had fought alongside Sora's unit for 3 months now. I do not understand you, the Zenthari said. You could leave. Go back to Earth where it is safe. Why stay and fight? Sora thought about it. Because you needed help. Because we can make a difference. Because... She paused, looking for the right words. Because we are not special. We are just survivors who learned to fight together. Earth taught us that survival means helping each other. All of us. The coalition propaganda changed. Recruitment posters showed human soldiers standing with coalition troops fighting side by side. The message was clear. We are stronger together. The Vex threat that had seemed unstoppable now faced an enemy with new strength. Admiral Yuna gathered coalition commanders for a major briefing. She stood before a star map showing Vex territory. For 70 years you have been reacting to Vex movements, Yuna said. Defending, retreating, surviving. That ends now. We are going to attack. The room erupted in protests. Attack? The coalition did not have the strength for offensive operations. They could barely hold defensive lines. We have the strength now, Yuna said firmly. Humans have joined this fight. Your forces are better trained, better equipped, and better coordinated than ever before. The Vex have pushed you back for decades. Time to push them back. She outlined Operation Shattered Claw, a massive coordinated strike into Vex territory targeting their supply lines and manufacturing centers. It was ambitious. It was risky. It was exactly the kind of aggressive warfare Earth had perfected over thousands of years of human conflict. Commander Deho, now promoted to Fleet Admiral, stood beside Yuna. He had watched humans fight for 6 months. He had seen what they could do. He believed. The Admiral is right, Deho said. We can do this. With human forces integrated into our fleets, we have capabilities we never had before. Speed, aggression, the will to win instead of just survive. The coalition approved. Operation Shattered Claw. 50,000 human soldiers would join 200,000 coalition troops in the largest offensive of the war. It would take months to prepare, but for the first time the coalition was planning to attack instead of defend. Sergeant Minho trained coalition soldiers in close combat techniques. Engineer Sulgi modified ships to take more damage. Medic Yunji taught coalition doctors how to treat injuries they thought were untreatable. Pilot Taeyang ran flight simulations that made coalition pilots better. Everywhere humans went, they changed things. Not by replacing the coalition, but by making it stronger. By sharing what Earth had taught them through millions of years of survival, the Vex noticed. Coalition intelligence intercepted Vex communications for the first time. The enemy was concerned. They called humans the unkillable prey, and were developing new weapons specifically designed to fight Deathworlders. Let them try, Minho said when he heard the news. Earth already threw everything at us, weather, predators, disease, gravity. We are still here. The Vex are just another challenge. On the eve of Operation Shattered Claw, Admiral Yuna stood on her flagship's bridge and looked at the assembled fleet, human ships and coalition vessels together, ready to take the fight to the enemy. They were legends in your eyes, Yuna said to Admiral Deho. Stories of impossible warriors from an impossible world. You are real now, Deho replied, and you have given us something we lost, the belief that we can win. The fleet jumped into FTL, heading toward Vex space. The war had reached its turning point. Legends were becoming reality, and the galaxy would never be the same. 1 year after first contact, the war reached its final phase. The Vex homeworld loomed on the tactical displays like a dark promise. Every species in the coalition understood what taking this world would mean. Victory. Real victory, not just survival for another day. Fleet Admiral Deho commanded the unified forces from his flagship. Human ships and coalition vessels surrounded him in formation. They had learned to fight together, adapting to each other's strengths and covering weaknesses. The fleet was not human or coalition anymore. It was both, combined into something stronger than either alone. All units report ready, the communications officer announced. Deho looked at Admiral Yuna, who commanded the human contingent. She looked older than a year ago, with new lines on her face and gray in her hair. The war had aged everyone, but her eyes were still sharp and determined. Let us finish this, Yuna said. The fleet jumped into the Vex home system, thousands of ships dropping from FTL space at once. A hammer blow aimed at the heart of the enemy. The Vex were waiting, their strongest forces arrayed in defense of their homeworld. The battle that followed would be remembered for generations. In the coalition capital, Ambassador Jisoo stood before the Grand Council, making the final argument for Earth's formal entry into the Galactic Coalition. Some species still had doubts. Humans were too violent, too aggressive, too different. Yes, we are different, Jisoo acknowledged. Earth made us different because it had to. But look at what that difference has accomplished. Look at the soldiers fighting together right now. Human and coalition. Dying together, winning together. That is what matters. Not where we came from, but where we are going together. The vote would come after the battle. Everyone understood that. If they won, Earth would join the coalition as full members. If they lost, it would not matter anymore. On the battlefield, Sergeant Minho led his troops through the Vex city. Urban combat was the worst kind. Every corner could hide enemies. Every building could be a fortress. His battalion had shrunk over the year of fighting. New faces replaced the old ones who had died, but they still fought with the same determination. A Vex warrior burst from cover and Minho shot it 3 times. Coalition soldiers fought beside him, coordinating movements like they had trained together for years. Because they had. Human drill instructors had been teaching coalition troops new tactics. Coalition officers had been learning human strategies. Building secured, Minho reported. Moving to next objective, they kept pushing forward. Block by block, street by street. The Vex fought hard, but they were losing ground. You could see it in their movements, in the way their attacks became more desperate. In space, pilot Tai Yang led his squadron against the last Vex defensive fleet. His wingman was a coalition pilot who had learned to fly the human way, pushing harder and taking more risks. Together they broke through the Vex fighter screen. Command Nexus ahead, Taeyang reported. Going in, the Vex command Nexus was buried deep in an asteroid fortress. Taking it out would blind the Vex forces across the system. But the defenses were heavy. Taeyang's squadron would not all come back. All ships on me, Taeyang ordered. We only need one ship to get through. They went in fast and low, dodging defensive fire. Vex fighters swarmed them. Ships exploded on both sides. Taeyang's fighter took damage, alarms screaming in his cockpit. He kept flying. The command Nexus grew closer, so close. Taeyang armed his missiles and fired everything. Then his ship exploded, torn apart by defensive weapons, but the missiles hit. The command Nexus shattered, and across the battlefield, Vex forces lost coordination. They could still fight, but they could not organize. The advantage shifted decisively. Engineer Silgi worked in the depths of a coalition dreadnought, keeping the ship fighting. They had taken heavy damage. Half the systems were offline. The ship should have withdrawn hours ago. We can give you another 10 minutes, Silgi told the captain. After that, the reactor goes critical and we all die. 10 minutes is enough, the captain replied. Silgi and her team worked miracles with destroyed equipment and sheer determination. They rerouted power, bypassed damaged systems, and held things together with courage and skill. The ship kept firing until the very last minute, then jumped away just as the reactor overloaded. On the ground, General Bora coordinated the final assault on the Vex leadership compound. This was the end. Take this building and the Vex would have no choice but to surrender. All forces advance, Bora ordered. We finished this today. The assault was brutal. The Vex leadership guard fought like demons, defending their masters to the last. Human and coalition soldiers fought side by side, taking casualties but never stopping. They had come too far to fail now. Sergeant Minho's battalion breached the outer walls. They fought room to room, floor by floor. The building was a maze of death, but they kept going. They had learned something important over the past year. Courage was contagious. When humans refused to quit, coalition soldiers found strength they did not know they had. When coalition soldiers held the line, humans fought harder to support them. The final defense fell. The Vex leaders were captured. The war was over. Silence fell across the battlefield as the news spread. Soldiers stopped shooting. Ships ceased fire. After 70 years of war, peace arrived like a shock. Admiral Yuna and Fleet Admiral Deho stood together on the flagship's bridge, watching the Vex forces surrender across the system. We won, Deho said quietly. I never thought I would see this day. Neither did we, Yuna admitted. But we did it together. That is what matters. A memorial was erected in Coalition capital space. It was a simple thing. A wall of names listing everyone who had died in the war, human names and coalition names together. No separation between them, all equal in death, all honored the same. Ambassador Jisoo stood before the memorial with tears in her eyes. She found Taeyang's name and touched it gently. So many had died, too many, but they had won. The sacrifice meant something. The Coalition Grand Council voted unanimously. Earth was granted full membership, fast-tracked through a process that usually took decades. No one objected. How could they? Humans had bled alongside Coalition species. They had earned their place. In a training academy on a Coalition world, Sergeant Minho taught mixed classes of human and alien soldiers. He was retired from combat but still had much to teach. His students learned tactics from both Earth and Coalition worlds, becoming better than either alone. The key to survival, Minho told his class, is working together. Alone we are strong, together we are unstoppable. Earth taught humans that lesson over millions of years. The Vex taught the Coalition that lesson in 70 years of war. Do not forget it. On a different world, a human teacher named Kyungmin taught young Coalition children alongside human kids. They played Earth sports together, learned each other's languages, and grew up without the boundaries their parents had known. This was the future, mixed, integrated, stronger for its diversity. Dr. Nari continued her research, now working with coalition scientists on joint projects. They studied Earth biology, coalition genetics, and everything in between. Knowledge shared freely between species, making everyone better. Engineer Seolgi ran a training program teaching coalition engineers what she called creative problem solving. The official term was human improvisation, and it revolutionized how coalition species approached technical problems. Sometimes the manual was wrong. Sometimes you had to make it up as you went along. In a quiet garden on Earth, Ambassador Jisoo met with Commander Daeho, who had come to see the death world that produced such remarkable warriors. He stood in gentle rain, feeling Earth's heavy gravity pull at him, and understood. "This world tried to kill you," Daeho said. "Every day of your evolution it tested you, and you survived." "Yes," Jisoo agreed. "That is what makes us human. Not that we are the strongest or the smartest, but that we survived what should have killed us and we kept going anyway." They walked through the garden, Human and Zentari, and talked about the future. There would be new challenges. The galaxy was large and full of unknowns, but they would face those challenges together. Admiral Yuna gave a speech at the Earth Space Academy, addressing the newest class of officers who would serve in the combined coalition fleet. "You are the future," Yuna told them. "Human and coalition trained together, fighting together. The Vex were dangerous enemies, but we defeated them because we learned to work as one. Remember that. Whatever comes next, we face it together." The galaxy moved forward. Trade routes reopened. Colonies were rebuilt. The scars of war slowly healed. But nobody forgot what had happened. The stories spread to every world. How humans had arrived and changed everything. How the coalition had found new strength by accepting help from Deathworlders. Fleet Admiral Daeho stood on his flagship one last time before retirement. He looked at a hologram of Earth, the blue and white sphere that had seemed like nothing special when he first saw it. Now he knew better. "They were just legends in our eyes," Daeho said to himself. "Stories too impossible to be real." Dr. Nari, visiting the flagship before it was decommissioned, heard him and smiled. "Until we entered the battle," she finished. "Then we became real. But we were never legends, Daeho. We were always just people trying to survive, you and us together." Daeho nodded slowly, understanding at last. That was the real lesson.